Well, for more on this, we're joined now by Ulrich Brueckner. He's a professor of European Studies at Stanford University and joins us live from Berlin. Thank you very much for your time, Ulrich, once again. What were the expectations ahead of this meeting, and in your opinion, were they met?
Well, this is not one of the very special moments. It's a normal conversation of a leader of a supranational institution, Ursula von der Leyen, right before a regular summit with the 27 heads of state and government and the leader of the United Nations. This is not a controversial subject. They exchange positions, they formulate urgent requests to get acts together and to organize humanitarian assistance. But I don't think that too many people have high expectations that a meeting of those two, who in fact are relatively weak given the situation of the United Nations and also the role of Ursula von der Leyen within the European Union, which is still much more dominated by the heads of state and government and not so much a central government of the European Union.
I did want to ask, with all these calls for a ceasefire and for more aid to be getting into Gaza, let's not forget that the EU, along with the US, continues to supply the most weapons to the Middle East, which includes Israel. Can we expect a call for Europe to stop arming Israel at any time?
Well, when we look back to the situation in October, the European Union was far more divided in how to read the situation. In the beginning, it was a strong position and a strong signal specifically sent from Germany, given its special relations with Israel, to send signals that even include formulations like unconditional support. What we now see is far from being unconditional support, because there have been a lot of criticism about how the military operation has been executed and how little the Netanyahu government is listening to humanitarian demands from all sides. Now, the fact that the United States draws a line, which is there should not be a military operation on the ground in the south of Gaza, this is something that the Europeans also support, but there's a different wording, not necessarily a different position. What could be much better is to coordinate the humanitarian assistance. It comes too late and it's also too little for the time being, but this is also something that you could ask the neighboring countries.
And once, of course, that offensive, if and when it does happen in Rafah, then it will be too late. That's where 1.4 million Palestinians are currently.
Well, it is already a humanitarian catastrophe for the people who will have to live under those conditions. They heard that it's a safe place, and that's why they should move from the north to the south. And now they will be a target of a military operation that, when we look at what happened before, doesn't care too much about casualties, as it is called. If Hamas fighters should be killed, then they use civilians as a shield, and the catastrophe that we witness already will become even more catastrophic. But there's relatively little the European Union could do because they have far less leverage than the United States.
Let's talk about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. He's claimed his fifth term as president, albeit no surprise. How much pressure will that be putting on the EU right now? How concerned will it be?
Well, the two problems that are very important for the European Union, given its location and the mere fact that the Russian invasion in Ukraine is not about territory, it's an attack on what the European Union stands for, the economic system, the political system, and the fact that Ukraine chooses to have a future in the West and not a future with Russia. This is something that directly affects the European Union, and all the sanctions play an important role when people look at rising prices and the cost of living in general. This is something that matters, but when you look at polls, this is not what dominates the public opinion in the upcoming elections for the European Parliament. Every country has a different priority, and there is not so much pressure for the different countries and the parties in power to do the right thing according to what the demos wants. For some people, the Middle East is not the Near East, as we call it in German, because they are not directly affected. A lot of people are tired of getting bad news from Ukraine, but they are less in fear as a lot of countries in the eastern part of the European Union. But it will not dominate the election campaign, neither the situation on the ground in Gaza nor the situation in Ukraine.
Ulrich, thank you very much for your time. Ulrich Brueckner speaking to us live there from Berlin.